So let us discuss deficit demand. Deficit demand refers to the situation when the aggregate demand AD is less than aggregate supply, means AS, corresponding in the full employment level of output in the economy. The situation of deficit demand arises when planned aggregate expenditure falls short of aggregate supply at the full employment level. It gives rise to the deflationary gap. And deflationary gap is the gap by which actual aggregate demand falls short of aggregate demand required to establish full employment equilibrium. So, full employment, you can say like that it may be noted that during the deficit demand equilibrium is determined at the level less than full employment equilibrium, it leads to the underdevelopment equilibrium. In this situation, there exit involuntary unemployment. Now we will discuss about the reason for deficit demand. So what are the reason for deficient demand? The reason for occurrence of the deficient demand are almost opposite to the reason for the excess demand. Because in excess demand, what happens when the income is very high, when the supply is there, lots of supply in the market, or reduction in the taxes. So all these reasons, so the people are just asking for the demand, more demand is there. But in the deficit demand means the less demand in the market. That is the reason. So those the reasons that those are for the excess demand. It's just opposite reasons are there. Like that, increasing in the in there, what happened? Rises in the propensity. Here, in the deficit demand, decreases in the propensity. So the decreases in the propensity, a decrease in the consumption expenditure due to the fall in the propensity to consume, leads to deficit demand in the economy. Their second point, we have learned about the reduction in the taxes. That is why deficit demand is excess demand is there. Here, increasing in the taxes. So AD, aggregate demand may also fall due to imposition of higher taxes. It leads to decrease in the disposable income, and as a result the economy suffers from the deficit demand, because if the people are paying much in the tax of their income, so why are they asking in the market, why are they doing the purchasing in the market? So that is why deficit demand. Next, decreasing in the government expenditure. Decrease in the government expenditure when government reduces its demand for goods and services due to fall in the public expenditure. It also leads to the deficit demand. Fall in investment expenditures means increasing in the rate of interest, or fall in the decrease, fall in investment expenditures means increase in the rate of interest or fall in the expected returns lead to decrease in the investment expenditure. So it reduces the aggregate demand and gives rises to the deficit demand. Rises in import, when the international prices are comparatively less than domestic prices, then it may leads to rise the imports, imply the cut of aggregate demand. Then is the fall in the exports. Export may fall due to the comparatively high prices in the domestic goods, due to increasing in the exchange rate of for domestic currency. This leads to the deficiency demand. Impact, what are the impacts of deficit demand? Deficit demand leads to fall in the prices, which in turn leads to fall in the output and employment level. So impact on which thing its impact is going on. So deficit demand or the deflationary. First of all, first thing is that it is a deflationary in nature. Next is generally deficit demand adversely affect to level of output, employment price and employment and price level in the economy. So what are the effects on the output? Due to the lack of insufficient aggregate demand, there will be an increasing in the inventory stock. It will force the firm to plan for lesser production because no one is purchasing, so less people are purchasing, not no one, less people are purchasing, so they are not producing because they have a stock, so why are they are producing? For the subsequent period, as a result, planned output will fall. So when the output will fall, it affected to the employment. If they are not producing so much things, so what they are doing, they are just the recession is there. They are not giving the employment to the people. Nowadays, what is happening? In this corona, the factories doing a less production. So what they have done, they have just move out there, or just they have take a less labor or less workers in their company, and they are doing the production because less production is required. Nowadays people are not demanding the things, so that is why that situation is here. So deficit demands occurs the involuntary unemployment in the economy due to fall in the plan of output. Now what is the effect of employment or output on the price level? So deficit demand cause the general prices to fall due to the lack of demand of the goods and services in the economy, because they want whatever the thing they have to be sale out there. So now we will discuss about measures to correct the excess demand. Before discussing about this, first of all, we will discuss about measure to control the excess and deficit demand. So the problem of excess demand and deficit demand occurs when the current aggregate demand is more or less than the aggregate demand required for full employment equilibrium. This problem can also solved by bringing the change in the level of aggregate demand in the economy. So there are a number of measures to control the excess and deficit demand. However, the scope, so we can discuss here about that measures, that how can we just control them, not to be write them, but to be control them. Change in the government spending and change in the taxes, changing the money supply or availability of the credit. These are the main instruments in by which we can control the excess or deficit demand. Now we will discuss them differently. So what are the measures taken by the we can take to correct the excess demand? So during excess demand, the current aggregate demand in the economy is more than the full employment level of output. It happens because of rise of money supply and availability of credit at easy terms. In order to correct the excess demand, the following measures may be adopted. Decrease in the government spending. It is a part of a fiscal policy. Government spend huge amount on the infrastructure and administrative activities. To control the situation of excess demand, government should reduce its expenditure to the maximum possible extent. More emphasis should be placed to reduce the expenditure on the deficit and the unproductive works, as they rarely help in growth of country. Decrease in government spending will reduce the level of aggregate demand in the economy and help to correct the inflationary pressure on the economy. So these are the measures. One more thing we can discuss about here, increase in tax also. That is the reason. We have discussed already about the reasons. So during the excess demand, government increases the rates of tax, even impose some new taxes also. It leads to decrease in the level of income, and the people are according to the situation, they will not going to the excess demand. Next is money supply or availability of the credit. The central bank or RBI aims to reduce the availability of credit in the economy through the monetary policy. Two measures we can use for that, that is quantitative instruments, and next is qualitative instruments. So first of all, we will discuss about the quantitative instruments for the controlling the for correcting the excess demand. So quantitative instruments increase in the bank rate. First is bank rate at the rate at which the central bank leads money to commercial banks to meet their long-term needs. During excess demand, central bank increases the bank rate, which raises the cost of borrowing from the central bank. It forces the commercial bank to increase their lending rates which discourage the borrowers to take the loan. It reduces the availability of credit in the economy and it helps to correct the excess demand. Easy means what they have to do? They have to control the money from the upper level. So up to the down level, it already controlled. Next is open market operation, sales of security. So in that, what happened? Open market operation refers to sale and purchase of the securities in the open market by the central bank. So now what they are doing to control the excess demand? It directly influences the level of money in supply in the economy. During excess demand, central bank offers securities for sale. Sale of security reduces the reserve of the commercial bank. So it adversely affects the bank availability to credit, create credit or decrease the level of aggregate demand in the economy. Next is increasing in the legal reserve requirement. Legal reserve requirement, what happened? In this thing, the bank is controlling their result to the they as a result what they are doing excess demand central bank has increased the repo rate which increases the cost of borrowing from the central bank. So this is the qualitative, quantitative, or now qualitative. Qualitative means increasing in the marginal requirements. Margin requirements refers to difference between the market value of security offered and value of amount lent. So when the economy is suffering from the excess demand, central bank increasing the margins which restricted the credit, creating power of the bank. Borrowers find it less attractive to borrow money and decrease the level of aggregate demand. Next is moral suasion. Moral suasion means this is the combination of the persuasion and the pressure that central bank applies on other banks in order to get them act in a manner in a line of the policy. Moral suasion is exercised through the discussion, letters, speech, and hint to bank. During excess demand, the central bank advised requests to persuade the commercial bank not to advance credit for the non-essential activities. So this will also selective credits. Selective credits means it refers to a method on which the central bank gives the direction to other bank to give or not to give credit for certain purpose to a particular sector. During excess demand, the central bank introduced rationing of credit in order to prevent the excess flow of credit, particularly for the some activities. It helps the wipe off the excess demand.